Strictly's Gemma Atkinson has sparked a huge debate about how couples should manage money in their relationships. Well, she was talking to our Claire about her and Gorka's finances in an episode of Claire's podcast, The Overshare. This just sparked this massive debate, didn't it, Claire, about what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, what do you do with your finances? Because so many couples
don't know.
They don't talk about it enough.
No, we don't. And Gemma's podcast is called The Overshare. So we were oversharing information about how we individually run our own finances as women. But we also heard from lots of other people who called in. Now, there's a really serious side to this because some of the people we talked to were in financially abusive relationships where money was being used by their partner to control their behaviour. Now, that can happen in a variety of ways. It could be that your partner doesn't want you to work, have friendships in workplaces and have your own money coming in and financial independence. You know, they want you to be dependent on them so that you can't leave the relationship. Or it could also work in another way, whereby you're earning money and your partner is controlling how that money is spent and saying, well, you can't spend it on clothes. It has to be spent on my hobbies. There are all kinds of ways. It's more common than you might think. 1 in 6 women are either in or have in the past been in a financially abusive relationship, according to the charity Surviving Economic Abuse. I say it slowly, Surviving Economic Abuse. So if that's happening to you, you can look up on their website to see some fantastic, resources and help for women in this awful situation. But even if it's not a controlling relationship, especially with older couples, it's often a situation where one partner is the money person. They make all the financial decisions. And the other person willingly lets them do that. But that can store up problems in the future because, for example, if they get ill or they were to die before you, leave you managing money on your own, all of a sudden, as a woman, you're very, very vulnerable. And sadly, that's something that financial advisors see an awful lot.
Yeah, of course. So what do you think? Should it be separate accounts? Is that the way that we should all do this? What do you think?
Well, if you're going to share your life and your home with somebody, sure, at some point you're going to have to share your finances in some way. But I think the crucial thing is that before you commit, you need to have a good idea about what you're getting into and pick up the signals. And this can happen from the first date. If you're finding it uncomfortable to talk about how you should split a bill in a restaurant, for example, how are you going to feel years down the line if you're talking about splitting the bills in a house that you both live in? And also, if you're financially linked to another person, for example, you share a bank account, credit cards, other debts, that person, they could run up debts in your joint names, but you're jointly responsible for paying them back. And to a certain extent, actions they may have taken financially before they met you could also impact on your credit file, for example. So there really needs to be trust and openness and transparency between couples. Obviously, people want to keep hold of the money that they're earning because this is what we're used to. This is the modern age. So the commonest model I see is that people keep their own bank accounts, like Gemma has, but then they have a third account, which is a joint account that they pay into for the shared expenses, things like bills, maybe to cover childcare costs.
And split down the middle, do you think that's better?
Well, this is the next debate. So, yes, you might start off splitting it 50-50 if you know what each other earn, but if one of you earns more than the other, which is the case in my own relationship, you might use what I call the ratio method. So as the higher earner,
there's your
I pay more.
What are you doing there?
We're on holiday because I don't just apply it to bills, I also apply it to holidays. So I pay more for holidays because I think it's fair. Now, the reason I think it's fair comes down to how I grew up. I used to see my mum and dad plotting their finances late at night and making all the decisions jointly together, even though at that time my mum looked after us and my dad went out to work. So even though it was his money that he was earning, it was their money to decide how to spend. And it's these experiences from our early lives that really shape how we feel emotionally about money. How your partner might feel and the models that were around where they grew up, if that's very different, then that's when you can get sources of friction within relationships and it becomes harder to talk about money. Now, a good friend of mine, a financial advisor called Philly, she says HALT, H-A-L-T, an acronym. If you're going to talk about money with your partner, never do it when you're either hungry, angry, feeling low or tired. Because
that's me all the time. No, it's not.
But if those
I can never talk about money.
If those things are the case, it's more likely to end up in an argument because money is such an emotional topic.
Right.
It can trip us over into feeling defensive, protective. So good to make time to talk about money, whether you're having a money date or a regular check-in every month, maybe when you do your budget together, and build in some healthy habits.
It is one of those things that probably don't talk about. We just put everything in the one pot. It's fine. The only time it's not fine is if I want to buy Steve a present, he's going to know how much it cost and indeed know what it is. So that's the only thing that's a little bit... Everything else is fine, but that's the only thing I find a bit weird.
Well, there's no right or
Not
wrong
weird,
model.
but just a bit annoying because I can't surprise him.
There's no right or wrong way of doing this. But often I find when I talk about the ratio method, couples will say, well, hang on a minute, when we first got together, we were doing 50-50, but since then, you know, I've been on maternity leave or maybe I've gone back to work part-time and I'm earning less, and actually I'm still paying 50-50. And that really makes me mad because we know that when women earn less, they go part-time, they're much less likely to build up their own savings into a pension, for example. We've got this huge pension gap emerging. Now, if you were paying less for the bills in accordance with your earnings, could you perhaps use some more of your wages to pay into your workplace pension? You know, these are all decisions that couples should really be thinking about.
Absolutely, of course they should.
But not when they're hungry, angry, low or tired.
No. We've been running a poll asking if you have a joint account with your partner. Now, less than half of you say that you do. Oh, here's another one. What about children? Once they reach a certain age and maybe they're out working but they're still staying at home, that's another one to navigate, isn't it? How much do you charge them? Do you charge them rent? Do you not?
Yes.
Or do you do?
You do charge them rent, I say, because they need to get used to putting a proportion of their income from their job aside to pay for their rent and pay for their bills. They should also know what the household bills are, because often that's a real shocker for kids when they move out. What do you mean I have to pay for water? Council tax? What's that? So, you know, it brings them up to date with real life. But if they get used to spending 100% of their income on what I would call lifestyle, nice creams and makeup, like Billy's going to show us in a minute, that's setting them up for trouble in the future. You can put the money in a savings account and they can use that to help with their rental deposit or house deposit when they move out. But it's instilling this sense of financial responsibility that will give them independence in the future. Ready to boost your savings, grow your pension pot and make every penny count? Well, we've got loads of Money Clinic videos right here on the channel. Check out this one for even more expert advice.